It's time for a women's basketball edition of NEC on the Run. Hello, everybody. I'm Ralph Fentry. It's December, and I'm here alongside Craig D'Amico. That could mean only one thing. It's time to talk NEC women's basketball. Craig, we are more than a month into the non-conference season. What have you seen thus far?
Well, first of all, Ralph, Christmas, Hanukkah must have come early that we're here talking women's basketball together. You know, what an interesting start. The theme of the season really has been change. David Bowie said it best, changes and face the strange. And it's kind of been a strange start where a lot of unexpected has taken place. You have 3 new coaches, 1 new program, a team with a brand new identity. You have a bunch of transition, a lot of players that left, a lot of new players being ushered in. So a lot of the unknown, and that's made things very exciting so far.
Well, first up, you mentioned we have 1 new team. Of course, the Merrimack College Warriors making the step up from Division II. Now, Dania Davis-Stewart and the Warriors are new to the D1 scene, but they have really hit the ground running.
Yeah, they didn't waste any time, did they? I mean, they came up with a huge game in their first game in D1 against UMass. And Dania Davis-Stewart, Sticks, we like to call her, had one of the greatest stat lines in NEC women's basketball history. 31 points, 13 rebounds, 12 blocks in 38 minutes. And, you know, this is a team that's already won 5 games in non-conference play. And I look at it like this. When Bryant made their transition into D1 a couple of years ago in 2010, they won 13 games that season, finished 10-8 in conference, good for 6th place. Now, I'm going to make a small prediction here, Ralph. I think Merrimack, the way I've seen them play so far, could very well be in that territory. They were picked last in the preseason poll. I don't think they're going to be finishing last. I think they're going to be a team that finishes in the top 8. Obviously, they wouldn't make the postseason this year as they go through that transition. But with DeCesare running the point, with Dania Davis-Stewart in the paint, this is a very well-coached veteran team that could do a lot of damage once conference play starts.
And they have an outside shooter, too, Kate Mager. Really, what a way, you know, they were D1 ready from the start. I mean, opening the season with a win over an A10 member and the star player nets a triple-double. Not much you can say to that, but wow. Merrimack, the new kids on the block. Let's take a look at our old reliable friends out in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. The defending champion Robert Morris Colonials, unanimous preseason favorite in the Northeast Conference. And their senior center, Nneka Ezigbo, is doing big things already.
You know, it's funny, Rob, with all these changes that we talked about, right? Poor old Robert Morris. Nobody's talking about them, right? All they did was win it all last year, bring everybody back, added some new pieces like Holly Forbes up front, and you know, making them even stronger. And you know, nobody's talking about what they're doing. And it's almost like Coach B has the crew, like, you know, sharpening their skills, waiting in the wings, ready to execute Order 66 on the rest of the NEC conference play season. But you're right, the Colonials and Nneka Ezigbo, if you have paid attention, are doing some really strong things so far in non-conference play. Ezigbo, as you mentioned, became the 24th member of the Robert Morris 1,000 Point Club. She was a player who we had on our list as a possible preseason favorite for Player of the Year, and she's definitely performed in that range so far this season.
Yeah, and she had the double-double in a big non-conference win over Xavier, the Colonials' first ever win over a Big East opponent. As a team, Robert Morris, only 3 losses thus far this season, all 3 losses by 5 points or fewer.
Against really strong competition, as
exactly, Craig. I was just going to mention the season opener at Big 12 member TCU. Colonials had a lead in the 4th quarter, lost 66-61, but certainly showed out against a top-tier opponent. And then, of course, they play a Big East member a few weeks later. They get the win over Xavier. They really outclassed the Musketeers in that one. Were up by as many as 28 points in that game, won by 14. So, yeah, Robert Morris looks like they're up to their old tricks out there in Moon Township. Let's switch it back to our theme of newness here. 3 first-year head coaches in the Northeast Conference, LIU, St. Francis U, and FDU. What have you seen from those 3 programs thus far?
Well, obviously 3 coaches taking over the programs for different reasons. Obviously LIU and FDU was performance-based. For St. Francis, they had an opening because their coach left. I mean, that's a team that's been in the championship game the last 2 years. So far for LIU and FDU, it's building. It's what you'd expect. New staff coming in with, setting new expectations, new systems in place. FDU, they're still without a win as of this taping, but they battle. They've had some close games against Manhattan. They battled to double overtime against Army. So Coach Shamiwa, I mean, they're getting Francione back. So, they have a group that, they do battle. And I think this non-conference season is definitely going to have them ready to go to cause some ruckus here during conference schedule. And as for LIU, Coach Haynes got her first victory against Hofstra. This is a team that, didn't fare so well last year. Again, reason why they have a new head coach. So it's just setting those new steps in place with their new identity. And as for FDU, they had to replace 30%, one player responsible for 30% of their offense last year. So that was going to be a tall task for whoever the head coach was. A little bit more balanced. They've picked up 2 wins, a double overtime win against Vermont. They beat Stetson. So, all these coaches here in the early season getting those first couple steps in place here in their new reigns with their programs.
That was, of course, Coach Whittington with the 2 wins for SFU, and then FDU, of course, you mentioned it very quickly that some good news on the horizon there with Francione back. She had a double-double in that overtime setback to Army, so I'm sure they're happy to see her back in Hackensack. And then, of course, LIU, you mentioned that they did struggle a bit last year, but they had some young talent. Jada Johnson, she's now a junior guard. Of course, Brandy Thomas, the reigning Rookie of the Year. So I'm with you. Definitely some reasons to be excited about those 3 NEC programs with 3 first-year head coaches. Let's kick it back to the old time, or should I just say the more established, more experienced, or more recognizable names in the NEC when it comes to coaching. And that would be Sacred Heart's Jess Minetti. Of course, Coach Minetti in her 7th season now at Sacred Heart. She's won a Coach of the Year award along the way. The team always seems to be in the top half of the standings. And then also St. Francis Brooklyn's Linda Simino, her 2nd year in Brooklyn Heights, but a longtime college coach. And both Coach Minetti and Coach Simino recently reached career milestones.
Yeah, congratulations to both head coaches. Coach Minetti picked up her 100th career win against Bridgeport a couple weeks ago, and recently Coach Simino picked up her 200th career win against East Stroudsburg and her old bestie Stephanie Del Priore, who's now the head coach there. Congratulations to those 2 head coaches on some terrific milestones.
Now, both of those head coaches, Craig, have seen newcomers step into the lineup and produce immediately. So I'm imagining that they are both on your list of impactful newcomers in the NEC's first month.
Yeah, I was there for Sacred Heart's opening game at Seton Hall back at the beginning of November, and Nikki Johnson and Jessica Woods both took advantage of opportunities. Haygood was out of the lineup for the first couple games, working her way back in. They put up some big numbers in the loss to the Pirates there, but now because of that experience, Sacred Heart had to replace a lot of players, so now they're fully involved in the team right from the get-go, so they're huge pieces to where this team wants to go. And same thing for Coach Simino. Ironically, they had to replace a lot of seniors as well as a lot of transitions, including Amy O'Neill, who was an incredible point guard, professional ready. She's playing in the pros now. And, I know a lot of people were asking Coach Simino prior to the start of the season at Media Day, what do you do? Who's going to run the point? And she played it very coyly. She's like, I don't know. We have a lot of options. We'll see. But they have a star in Nevena Dimitrievich, who already doubled up, was Player of the Week and Rookie of the Week in the same week. And her pace right now through 8 games of the season as we're taping this is at the exact same pace that Amy O'Neill was last year when she had over 200 assists. Last year O'Neill was at 60 assists through 8 games. Currently Nevena is at 59. She's working the pick and roll perfectly with Allie Lassen. They're a great, they complement each other and work that offense really well. Dmitrievich leads the NEC in assists. It's almost like they replaced one star lead singer with another. It's almost like David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar, although the Billie Eilish age kids don't know who those people are. But it's going from one lead to another, and that's been seamless, and it's led to some exciting basketball for St. Francis Brooklyn.
And what you're telling me is that St. Francis Brooklyn's freshman point guard is on a record pace, because you said she's matching Amy O'Neal's run from last year, and Amy O'Neal put up an NEC single-season record in assists last year. So
I hate to put any pressure on her, but yes, she's on that pace.
So basically 1/4 of the way through, something special brewing in Brooklyn Heights. Any other newcomers that we should keep an eye on here as the season moves forward, Craig?
Well, we already talked about DeCesare. Arne Taylor from Mount St. Mary's, along with Kendall Brzee, who is a transfer. They're two of the top 4 scorers for the Mount right now. And Alex Cohen for Wagner had those 2 big games, 20-point games right at the start of the season. She's averaging still over 13 points, one of the top lead scorers for the Seahawks. So, as you said at the beginning, there's a lot of youth. 7 of the top 10 players in the league from the first and second teams a year ago have moved on. Only 3 are returning. So there's a lot of space right now for these young stars to kind of step up and take advantage of the opportunities, and that's what we're seeing happen right now.
And the thing I have noticed over the years with young players, new teams, first-year head coaches is it takes a little time. And the first 5-6 weeks of the season, the non-conference portion of the schedule, that's really when they get to feel everything out, kind of calibrate themselves, and what it usually means is that they hit their stride during conference play. Craig, not here yet, but it's coming down the pike. Conference play tips off right at the new year. 3 games in January that are circled on your calendar.
Well, it'll be here before you know it. 3 games that I'm looking ahead to in the month of January, starting on January the 8th, the Battle of Brooklyn. The first Battle of Brooklyn in this new incarnation here with the Sharks against the Terriers. It'll be an SNY game, part of the NEC Women's Basketball TV package, so we're really excited about that, and it's always fun when LIU and St. Francis Brooklyn get together. And then on January 20th, 2 games I'm looking forward to on that day. That's when you'll see Sacred Heart take on Robert Morris, 2 of the top teams annually forecasted every year, it seems like, in the NEC. And you'll also see St. Francis Brooklyn at Mount St. Mary's. They played a couple of really close regular season games last year, and of course they met in the quarterfinal round of the tournament. It was the closest quarterfinal matchup in the NEC last year. It was a 6-point game, went down to the wire. So we're really excited to see that new young St. Francis Brooklyn team go up against this Mount team that has a lot of veterans, some new people infused as well, as we mentioned. So that should be a really exciting matchup.
So basically, Craig, we're just getting started here in NEC women's basketball. Only about 1/4 of the way through the season. Plenty more games to come. Plenty more memorable moments waiting to be made. And we'll have plenty more NEC women's basketball talk as the season transpires. For now, I thank you for joining us. I'm Ralph Ventry with the Northeast Conference. He is play-by-play man and overtime blogger, Craig D'Amico. Until next time, this was a women's basketball edition of NEC on the Run.